Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Sue, and you've just stepped into Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Every week, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine, a remarkable entrepreneur who's not just changing the world, but also harnessing a secret weapon, time outdoors. Together, we'll dive into their journey, unpack invaluable business advice, and discover why embracing the wild is not just good for the soul, but also a goldmine for inspiration and innovation. Ready to uncover the secret that's boosting bottom lines and fueling joy? Hit subscribe and join us in the wild. Oh, guys, welcome back to Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Today is a treat. In fact, anybody who knows my guest who's on today is going to just can't hit play fast enough. She is a fantastic person. I love her, and she's coaching and she's so smart, and she's just like, I love her. So you're going to love her too. I know it. I do have to apologize in advance. There is a housefly buzzing around. If it gets on, hey, we'll just give it its moment in the spotlight and move on. From, going crazy. Anyhow, welcome to the show, Jules. I'm so glad you're here. Would you just please give yourself a quick little intro and then we're going to dive in.
Sure. So I am 3 to 4 years into my entrepreneur journey. I live in Canada, born in Australia, and I started discovering e-commerce about 5 years ago. And before that, it was a massive traveling journey, being outside, like you promote. And I guess it's always been an independent journey for me ever since I left school. So that's where I am now. I've been experiencing or learned a bit of e-commerce models, and now I feel like I'm taking my own path. But being outside, finding your place of independence and solitude has always been part of the journey. So yeah.
You've been everywhere, haven't you?
Yeah, I'd say, I think UK, what's next? I'm in my 38th country now. But
I didn't know it was that many. I was joking. I mean, I was kind of everywhere, but not 38 countries.
Yeah, I don't count them as traveled though, because I spent such little time in them. Yeah. I've gotten a little bit of each of those countries, so I think that is sort of amounted to me seeing and understanding the world a different way. 100%.
That's wild. That's wild. Now, I had the pleasure of interviewing you. I don't know, has it been 2 years, a year and a half? It feels like forever ago. At the time you were working on the journal that you had. Now you're doing some other things. Tell us a little bit. Let's do the Gut Tastic first.
Gut Tastic, yeah. I mean, let's take a step back because it relates to that. So when we first talked, it was the journal for entrepreneurs, and that was a time in my life where everything was sort of falling apart, and having that journal project was the thing that kept me having something or some sense of purpose. And then I dropped that, and then I sort of went into the community where we met, and that's where I talked about launching it and how do I get it somewhere. And then had another life crisis and then trying to figure out where it was for me. So the attention turned to not just helping aspiring entrepreneurs, but the people who were looking at their mental health and how that was a blockage for them, not realizing it was a blockage. So then I guess in the span of 6 to 8 months, the powder came alive, Gut Tastic came alive, the brand idea, the doing a greens powder, because it was something I took. So I created Gut Tastic, and initially the brand name that Ryan, who we both work for, gave me was Glimmers of Hope. And it came about because I would be that glimmer of hope for people who were experiencing what I had gone through. So that eventually became actually the kind of a logo or the ultimate mission, the higher purpose thing. But Gut Tastic, the powder, became Gut Tastic. And a lot of people actually think of it as this thing that heals the gut, or it's gut health, but it actually isn't about gut health as much as the person feeling or having those gut feelings when you create your vision, when you're an entrepreneur and you're moving on. And so this powder helps you just amplify whatever you already do and make it feel gut-tastic, I suppose. So I guess that was the project in the recent months. And now, as you know, my immersion is in coaching.
Yeah.
So Gut Tastic is now part of my product ecosystem. Eventually, when I think of the larger picture, it's part of the product ecosystem, but I'm not actively being like, this is the e-commerce business I want to build, this is my empire, So I think I always felt that it was never my empire. It was just a step along the way. But now I see the happiest feeling I get, the most inspired feeling I get is when I get to spend a lot of time with a person or a group of people versus selling.
Yeah. Man, and you're fantastic at this. Guys, if you have not listened to Jules' podcast, you got to do this. And you can go to julessu.com, JULESSU.com. And oh my gosh, it's one of my favorites. It really is. I'm just like, I just love it. I'm not going to spoil it, but you guys should listen. So, man, all right. So, and I could totally see having like Gut Tastic being, this kind of a physical product within your, like you said, your empire. Like if you're coaching somebody, there's so much going on inside their brain, inside their gut, inside the whole interior thing that we can't see. This will help it get going, like help just align things and help. Probably every adult ought to be probably having some greens because it's good for you and it's not horrible. This is not, Jules's is not horrible. I'll tell you that. I've had some and it's just like, what am I, Shrek? I'm like drinking from a this is disgusting. Right. Now, I will tell you, I'm working my way up. I'm doing like half a scoop. I'm doing it inside of some, I like vanilla cinnamon tea. So it kind of tastes like a chai. It looks green, but my husband every time, what is that? I'm like, it's sludge, hon. Don't worry about it.
I've never tried it with chai. I think it'd be interesting because the two things just mix me. So I'm like, I'm going to see this as a matcha latte.
Yeah.
My favorite way is a smoothie. It just goes good with the spinach.
It does. That's another good way. So you're getting people's greens in them. Now tell me more about like the coaching.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I could start with the people that I do spend time with, because I think coaching is a tool and I have to see it as a tool and not a tile. So it's one of the ways I do work with people. Sometimes I bring in coaching, sometimes it's mentorship, sometimes it's just they need space to just vent, So with coaching as a tool for the people I work with, the conversations I love to have is with highly motivated individuals and entrepreneurs who have a vision or on the way of creating their vision. And I help support them in activating their vision in a faster amount of time than if they were to do it alone. So simply put, that's it. And I love that you asked me this now and so transitioning the question, because yesterday I did some work and I did an influencer workshop on becoming this personal brand thing. And he talked about the paradigm shift where you have to figure out what's not only the thing that you work with people on and help them solve, but what is the paradigm shift they need to have in order to see a path with you and be interested to work on. So the way I drew it out is almost every entrepreneur we know, and ourselves, to me included, is we're on this path of entrepreneurship and vision and life building. And it's almost a downward path, like a slightly downward path. I'm going to realize it's a downward path, but it's two things. It's we're doing it alone or think that we have to do it alone, or we're setting goals with an unrealistic timeline. And the paradigm shift I've realized that I provide these visionary entrepreneurs is that, one, you don't have to actually achieve your vision alone, and two, it doesn't have to take 10 years. So those are the kind of conversations that I have with these people, and oftentimes we go pretty deep just in insight. But I think that paradigm shift there is not just one thing that goes, oh, I need to work with this person, but it's over a long amount of time. I provide 100 different perspective shifts that then help them have that, okay, let's go up this way instead of the way that I've always been going. I didn't know there was another way. So those are the people that I love to have conversations with, and sometimes coaching will become part of it.
Yeah. And you just have this way about you. Like I've seen you at work. I kind of watch. I'm like, what does she do? You have this warmth, this ability to really connect with people on a really deep level very quickly. And I think part of it is just this sense of like you're just for them, like this sense of, all right, if Jules thinks I can do it, I can do it. I mean, like, probably people say this, like, it's incredible. What draws you to coaching? As there's a million things. Like, you're one of those people where I feel like you could drop Jules off anywhere on the planet, she's going to be fine. She's going to have friends, good friends, almost immediately. She's going to find something beautiful to do. And so why coaching?
I sort of discovered it, and I think it was just the name that was given to what I feel like I love doing. So I think even as community manager, when you and I worked together, the role was community manager, but part of that felt like 20% of my time I was spending on one-on-one calls, and really that was the tool there. It was coaching these people into not only believing themselves, but seeing a path that they can take. And it was a lot around just the mind. So I think coaching became a tool that I use in the role of community manager. So now I'm sort of just diving into it and learning skills and training to get really good at the tool of coaching, or the skill of coaching. And I think when you ask me why coaching, I think why spend time with people almost? Why spend time understanding their vision and helping them activate it? Why do that? And I think it's tricky. I'm thinking about it now because I read your questions earlier and I wrote down a couple of words, but that's not really answering the question still. So when you say why coaching, why spend time with these people? I think it comes down to selfishly me thinking about life. If you would ask me, like, if there's one thing I want to do this whole life, what would it be and why? It's that we've got one life to live. Why not make it as incredible as you can? And the second part is we can live so many different lifestyles or lives in one lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I think working with people and spending time with them and helping them activate their vision means that they can live more lives in one lifetime. And helping them see that this isn't just one thing that has to be the be all end all thing, which is what we kind of get held to sometimes, where it's like, I have to do this or I'm a failure. But it's really just like, here's one way you can go, let's have fun with it. Here's another way you can go and have fun with it. So I think it invites a lot of exploration, creativity, opportunity, and empowerment. I think that's probably my word.
I like that a lot. That's, it's, and all that comes through. And it's just, I love how you put that. Like, how many lives, in a sense, like living multiple lives in your life. This is, when people are going for a dream and a goal, it's, it does feel like kind of opening, all right, turning the page, what's on this? And a whole brand new thing. We're sketching this out. We're doing it. And do you find most of our entrepreneur friends, including us, is there a, kind of a measure of fear? Are you finding that when you talk with people, are they afraid? Are they doubting themselves? Like, what's the big thing that you constantly see people doing?
I smile so much because a reason that we're diving into is that fear is a mask for desire. Ooh. And what we often don't do is we sit there and think, okay, I'm afraid of getting on camera. I'm afraid of going TikTok. I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid. But the fear is actually a mask for what you really desire. So I created this thing called the What Scares You list. And I've done it before. I've done it a few times with some clients. And I get them to sit down and just have a piece of paper and draw a line in the middle. On the left side, it's write down all the things that you're scared of. And I think I did a podcast on this too. It's I think it's what you're scared of is what you really desire. One of those. Yeah. So it was going to that. I remember giving an example of me too, of what the things that I'm scared of, like my parents and whatnot. And then looking at what does that actually mean? What do you truly desire to be scared of that? So one of the examples I gave, for coaching, for example, is I'm really scared to tell someone, look, it's $500 an hour to work with me. Or to pick a really huge number, at that point when I made the podcast, I'm like, oh, this is a scary thing for me to ask someone. That's a lot of money, right? Because I've never experienced that kind of money personally, but that person has, or that's a small amount to them, but it's scary for me. So if I sat there and looked, okay, what do I actually desire? Is to be a prosperous coach. It's for this to be my way of amplifying the impact on the world by creating the income to do so. So we have to actually sit down and write these fears out, because until we do, it's just sitting in our mind and we're identifying with it. And it's surprisingly an exercise that people just don't do, even though they know they're scared of it. They're like, oh, I know this already. write it out and transform it, put it to the other side of the column. Is what you just do.
I like that. Do you find like when you're writing it down, like does it get smaller or does it seem like more detailed and scarier?
I'd say it becomes realistic because fears are stories. Yeah. You know, one thing Brené Brown said I learned from her is that your first thought, and she teaches the children this, the first thought you have, the first assumption you have is a shitty first draft. It's your first story. So then realize that you can go, okay, like let's create the next one that actually serves me. So I think the first thing, the fears we have is always that first shitty draft, and we sort of attach ourselves to it being like, oh, I'm scared on camera. But you have to sit there and go, you know what, it's actually just a story. The truth is the camera's here and I'm here. This is an unfamiliar skill and I've got to just do it over and over again to get familiar with it. That's the fact of it. It's a skill. It
takes all the heat out of it. There's no drama in that. Right?
Yeah, 100%. So it's the stories.
That's really, really cool. I love that. Now, 5 years ago, would you have imagined that you'd be doing coaching, or is this something that has been kind of brewing for you?
I think it's what you said. Just said it's brewing for me without me having an intention of it. I think what's interesting about life, we don't really see what has, and that's the whole thing about like life is happening for us, not to us. And you don't really know what for all the time. You don't really have intention for every day you have or every week or the month ahead. I don't even know what next month's going to look like. So I think it's drive, motivation, ambition, consistency, persistence has always been there for me. But like we mentioned before, you can have so many different lives in one lifetime. So as a university student, I was a business person. I was like, I'm a corporate financial analysis. That was me. And then a year after that, I was like, I'm a traveler and a soul searcher. A year after that, I'm like, well, I'm suicidal now. A year after that was like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur now, aspiring entrepreneur, unsuccessful entrepreneur. And then I was community manager. And now I love this now. And so I think many of those lives can feel really exciting during the time, and then there's also, is there something that you can hold on to or want to hold on to for the rest of your life? But each of those lives has presented me with skills and experience that are for life, but the role changed, the vision changed, the goal changed. But when you ask like coaching now, for me, I feel like it's not the title I will have for the rest of my life, but again, it's a skill, it's a tool. So I know I'll always be relationship building for the rest of my life, and coaching can be a skill that I use all the time for the rest of my life.
It's kind of hardwired into you, I think, which is neat. I mean, it's like, if nothing else, you're like the best friend for people. You know what I mean? It's just like friendships. It seems like that comes easy to you. Has it always been like that?
I think rapport has. I think, I wouldn't say friendship comes easy. I think maybe it's the safety that I feel with strangers is easy for me. I think that comes with the travel part as well. Like when you're alone in the wilderness and you encounter situations where you're like, I don't actually know there's no path for me right now. There's no 1, 2, 3, there's no steps. Even when you go to the train station, it's like, buy the ticket and it costs this much and get on the train. But when you're like in the middle of like Serbia and there's just like gun holes in the walls. And
oh my gosh.
Street. Like, where's the train station? Where's the bus? Where's the hostel? Google Maps isn't working. I don't have any data. My phone doesn't work. So repeat your question for me again, because I want to make sure that
now I'm fast. Now my brain is on Serbia. What was the question? Oh yeah, I think it's always come natural to you, like making friends and
making friends, right? So I think when you're in that position though of like the world has it's there for me, and so all the walls come down and I'm just interested in a stranger. I'm like, hey, can we help each other? Hey, can we talk? And so I think when I think about, does it come easy to me? It's not any skill I use or way I communicate or way I approach someone. It's just because my walls are down. It's just because I'm an open book. Yeah. And it's just because I don't care about being judged. It's just because other people's opinions don't matter to my identity.
Yeah.
There's a quote I remember taking when I was in traveling, and it just stuck with me. It was something about when you're on the road, there's no judgment or sort of awareness of your past life or identity. So there's no judgments on the road or something like that. And it made so much sense because every day I was going to a new hostel, every day I was going to a new train stop, every day I was going to a completely new environment of people, and no one knows what I did yesterday or the day before, or that I stole stuff, or that I left school, or all the bad stuff or the good stuff even. So you get a chance every day to rewrite your story. I could tell someone every day that I'm a different, like one day I could say I'm a blogger, and next day I'll be like I'm an entrepreneur, next day I'll be like I'm a CEO, and all of them will know. Wait, they don't know, right? You move on. So you can make it up. You can make your whole life up, and that was the fun of traveling as well.
That's kind of cool. I mean, so now, so you literally were traveling the world by yourself.
Yes, yeah.
That's amazing. And how old were you when you did this?
21.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you do this?
So it was 8 months solo, but I'd say it was a year and a half overseas.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good year and a half from Australia, but I've met people who are on the road for like 8 years, 6 years, like a crazy amount of time. And they might go home to visit, but then they go back on the road kind of thing. But I was like straight 8 months solo, Europe and Asia. Then I met my parents in Vietnam, and then I went to Japan with my sister, and then I came home. But yeah, it was 8 months straight of solo.
That's an amazing, like a whole education, really. You learned yourself, you learned the world, you learn how to navigate, how to get by, how to, the finances of this, the logistics of this. That's,
yeah.
Wow.
I tell people travel's the best education, but only if you make it, because if you're the kind of traveler who always goes with your partner or with your family, you have to stay in nice hotels, you don't travel. You get told what to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories too, to that point about meeting amazing people, I met this mother and daughter when I was waiting for a ship or a boat or ferry across from Ireland to Dublin, maybe? No, Dublin, same country. I think it was just between the two continents, somewhere up in Ireland. So both of us we were all lost. We're like, where's this ship? Where's the waiting port? Whatever it is. So then I ended up meeting this mother and daughter traveling. The mother was probably in her mid-30s, but she was tall. Her daughter was 10 years old. And she said, oh, I'm taking my daughter backpacking. So they were solo traveling together. I'm like, amazing, beautiful. And I spent the whole ferry ride just sitting and talking to her daughter. I was shocked. I was just amazed about how not only intelligent, but confident and witty she was. 10 years old, she would just go straight up to the bar and ask for whatever she wanted. We'd sit down and talk like she was 21, talking about currencies and talking about really adult stuff. And that's what amazed me, because it didn't feel like she was 10. I wasn't like in my head going, okay, this is a 10-year-old. Let's talk about, fun stuff. Or this is a 10-year-old. I was thinking, I'm just talking to her like I would someone my age. And I think that was pretty incredible. I've had, definitely some incredible interactions, but that really opened my eyes to what education could be like. If every child was as alert as her, this world would be completely different.
Oh yeah. And there's that sense too when you're traveling of you're in a sense, you have your life there. Like, oh, okay, now I have an Irish life. Now I have I'm Serbian. I mean, you're not, but you're there, you're immersed in it. And it's got to just expand, your brain has to blow up at some point going, oh my gosh, this is, we have so much in common. We've got, the same worries, same as you're having these deep conversations with complete strangers who don't have to talk to you, that's wild. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Do you miss it?
I do. And I know that I'm going to do another trip soon at some point. There's a reason why my camera is still sitting there and I haven't sold it. There's a reason why my backpack is still my covered as well, because there's a part of me that knows that there's another trip in me to go solo, and it must be Eastern Europe because I didn't get to that side.
All right.
I think Estonia, Latvia, Romania, and a couple of connections would happen. This is the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship, is even though I've been stable here, the past 5 years I've been able to connect with people in all these countries. And when we have these one-on-one conversations for an hour, they're telling me about their life. They're telling me about the food they eat. And so you get to travel as an entrepreneur while not actually physically moving. But now I've got, in that time, connections in France, connections in Romania, connections in Turkey, people in Greece. They're all just like, when you're here, let me know. Like,
no hostels. Come stay with me.
Yeah, it feels like it's gonna come at the right time, but that makes sense. That there's a place and time for everything, I think, and I'm a believer of everything happens for a reason. So if I'm here building a business for the next 5 years, it's for a reason, and then when I go traveling in 10 years, it's for a reason. But that might be the best time for me to have enjoyed that experience to the fullest because it was 10 years later.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's exciting. I love this. The whole, that's a whole great concept of just, that's really cool. I like that. All right. So when you've been out and about, as you do, globetrotting everywhere, have there been times where you've been outside, like by yourself, and you've gotten like this eureka moment of, oh my gosh, this is, like something really cool that you want to do?
I thought about this question earlier too, and I wrote down more about, there was a question you had about being outside. I think it might have been this question or the one before it. But I thought about the word being outside. I thought about the idea of being outside. I know Entrepreneurs Gone Wild, where we're talking about being in the woods and the campfire and being with nature. And I suddenly thought, outside isn't always nature. Sometimes it's just outside our comfort zone, outside what we know, outside the house, outside our friendships, outside ultimately, what we know. So the eureka moments for me have not been times where I've gone on a hike and like, oh, there's a project I want to create. But I think the moments of insight have always happened when I've gone outside some extent of my capacity. And I think in the past 2 years, it's been not so much getting out of my comfort zone, but getting outside of what I know. I think that's the interesting part. So I do get out in nature like every day, but it's when I go outside what I know. And when I know that, I don't know what I don't know. So, and this is even too with clients that I work with. Like there's so much that I don't know, so that I never assume what you know. You don't know. But yeah, I think those moments of insight occur when I just go outside, and that's not necessarily nature.
Yeah, that's a whole different perspective on that. All that stuff. There's that quote about everything you want is outside your comfort zone, or all of that. And I think you live there. I think you live outside that comfort zone, outside of that.
Yeah.
Set in, like, you're not doing life like it's a tour, where somebody's like, okay, everybody on the bus, we're doing this, we're doing that. You're kind of on your own as far as just charting your own course.
I love this too. I'll say one more thing. So I literally just thought of this like an hour ago, because it was actually Stan who sent me a message. I'm like, oh my God, just had a cool insight. So I think many of us know that analogy of the comfort zone where like it draws you in the circle, and we're like comfort zone, and then you have a bigger circle around, and it's like where you're not, or where your potential is, right? And I look at that and think, that makes us feel like there's a black hole out there. Like, how are we supposed to go and find this bigger hole? Like it's just complete uncertainty, right? No wonder we're scared of going outside it, because there's so much space in that circle. And I look at it like this, where did I put it? I feel like it's almost like like a target. So I put zone of comfort, zone of discomfort. And then everyone's looking at this all the time. Everyone's being analyzed or socialized into this metaphor all the time. And I thought, I didn't really gel with the whole idea of, I got to get outside my comfort zone. I think, and this is why coaching has felt so strong for me, because it isn't about going to that discomfort zone. It's just about looking at something differently. Every conversation I've had in the past 3 months, someone's just gone, I didn't see it that way. Or like, oh, you just gave me a really cool perspective. And they go off and do something different. So it's not that they stepped out of their comfort zone. They just saw a different way of looking at it, which provoked something new for them. So the way I look at it now is, instead of me, instead of anyone trying to jump out of this little hole and go to the big hole of uncertainty, it's, let's just go play here, then play here, and then play here, then play here. There's all these overlapping circles of difference. And so I think it's just overlapping perspective, overlapping ways of doing something. And so we kind of get this almost a honeycomb matrix looking thing where it's just like a bunch of overlapping together. And these are all the different ways of you doing something fun. And then when you zoom out, I think 20 years later, you're like, look at this massive matrix that I've come from. And that makes me a really powerful, unique person because you've just done things differently, constantly, different. But everyone's in there going like, oh, I'm comfortable right now. I've got to get uncomfortable. I've got to do the scary thing. I'm like, don't, just do what you're doing, but do it differently. Go and invite difference into your life, invite perspective into your life. So that was the other thing I wanted to add.
That's
I was
cool.
excited about that.
Yeah, this is typical, folks. So, like, when you're talking with most people, just hold on, Jules. We're going to talk about you for a second. Normally, when you're talking with a coach, I don't know if this has been an experience for everybody, but usually it's kind of like 80% of the stuff. Like, yeah, I've heard that, I've read that. That's cool. I've seen that. There was a meme. Jules has this way of. Like, it's surprising. You surprise me sometimes, like when we'll chat, I'm like, darn, that's good. And you also accumulate things from other, like you're out in the world, you're hearing things. We were just talking before the call about this concept of, like if you're with a partner, especially as an entrepreneur, thank goodness, but the partner can kind of serve as like a container, like help you build this arena that keeps, you go play in there, and then there's boundaries to it. Thank goodness. Like I was saying, if I didn't have my husband, I'd probably be working about 18 hours a day right now, just trying to, driven by anxiety or something on those days when you're anxious, aren't we all at some point? And, having that presence, it was like this arena in place. You have this amazing skill of just pulling these great analogies where it's like, stuff I had not heard. And I think probably, do you hear that a lot? People are like, oh, never thought of that before, like that.
Yeah, it's almost every conversation. And they won't specifically say that, but it's in the pause. It's in them going, oh. I know an insight because it's just, they're either thinking it, or I also know they have the insight because the magic happens outside the conversation. Between the first conversation and a month later, I'm like, tell me about what's happened. They're like, well, this. I'm like, I know, like a lot of insights have happened between. But to that point earlier too about drawing different analogies, I think that's what we miss as entrepreneurs is we miss out on that person that can create an arena for us. Instead, we're focusing on getting uncomfortable. But who's setting that arena for you? And this is why investing in yourself by having a mentor, a guide, or a coach, or that one-on-one person that can hold a brave space for you and hold an arena is completely different to joining a course or a program where you're in with 1,000 people and them achieving all these things and you seeing and being like, I gotta get uncomfortable. And suddenly it feels daunting.
Yeah. So all it feels is uncomfortable at that point, But I think you have this skill, and maybe that's also part of what a coach does, is helping to build that arena for somebody. Like you said something, and I've already lost the words. It was beautifully put though about creating essentially creating a safe space for them, but
brave space.
Something else.
Yeah, I say brave. I make the distinction too because I think there's a lot, and before I even felt this too, is that there's a lot of safe space out there. There's a lot of like, join this group, we can get vulnerable, go over here, we've got guides and programs, we'll hold your hand, etc. While that's great, I think for me it's creating a community and space for people to be brave.
That's so cool, because
you can be safe.
That's an amazing distinctive. That distinction, that's incredible. Like creating a brave space, like helping people to be brave in that. And that's, entrepreneurs, what I love is, we take ownership of problems we didn't cause. We, serve somebody, like really serve somebody and help, just like we exist to help make their life better. A very specific person with a very specific problem, and we lay it all down to help them. And you totally do this, but I think so many of us, it's a scary place to be in. We're doing something nobody has ever done for this person that we've picked, that we're going to love and serve and all this. And that is scary. And the financial part of it is scary. And all the various elements, you're putting yourself out there and all. And my gosh, to have somebody, sometimes it can't be your spouse or your partner or your friend, like they don't get it. That's very common. But to have somebody who's literally standing there with you, who's checking in, who's helping you, kind of like like holding the hand and they're stretching way out over the cliff and you're like, no, I got you. Like you're helping create that brave space for them and helping them to step into it. And what happens after we've been brave? What do you think? Have you seen that when somebody's embodied that space that you help them to create, that brave space? What is usually what happens? Or can you even generalize? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, one word, and it's transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Transformation. And what comes back is they've realized they've done that intuitively. So even take you, for example, right? You're a visionary entrepreneur, you're a dreamer, and you have these big ideas that are larger than yourself, and it serves the world. So you don't need safety. You need bravery in a space to be brave. So I find that, and that's why I love to work with entrepreneurs who are ready to be brave, not ready to get scared and do the scary thing and get out of your comfort zone. But I think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I have it in front of me thinking, okay, we've got safety, variety, connection, significance, growth, and contribution. So I like to play in growth and contribution because most of the time these visionary leaders already have some sense of safety, variety, and connection. They know how to get that already. I don't need to teach them how to do that. They don't need to be handheld for that. But growth and contribution is where it gets tricky because I feel like all the other ones are at risk. So I seem to going like, let's play, let's be brave with it, because it's where it's going to take you to the next level of success. And that's where I started researching what holds back visionary entrepreneurs and highly motivated individuals from the next level of success.
That's neat. I just had a flash of something where it connects. This is crazy. So it's like, all right, so if somebody's going to go solo travel the world, right? It's scary. For a lot of people, it's scary. They want to do it, but also like, and you were even saying like when, you're like, okay, where's the hostel? Where's the, you don't have your phone, you don't have a map, you don't have, like you're just figuring it out. That takes a tremendous amount of bravery. Some people would never, ever dream of doing something like that. But you've done that. And in a sense, like you're doing the same thing with the entrepreneurs. You haven't walked their exact path, but you've gone around a little enough that you can go, you can create that, like a safety net in a sense, but more like a bravery net. Like, okay, you can go out. I don't know. It feels like that's, you're helping people embark on these incredible journeys that they're going on and helping them to discover that braveness because you're doing it with them,
It's a good point to bring up. I think I was telling you I was cleaning condos the other week. I was helping a friend out. And I had to return to give some towels to the next lady who was cleaning the next day. And I ran into her. I never knew her, but her name was Diane. And I spoke to her for like 5 minutes and somehow we just went down this deep hole. And then when I had to leave, she was like, you have this safe personality. So what's interesting when you say that, and it makes me think, I think the safe personality, the safety, the connection between one and another person is what creates a connection and trust. And then where I like to play is bravery. So I think safety is very important as a foundation for someone to first trust you and sort of be enrolled in what you believe in, and that they believe that you can help them. Because that's all we want to know when we have new interaction. Can you help me? So it's trust, and then they can go, I want to be brave.
Yeah.
So I think safety, you make a good point there. I think safety is definitely a first element.
Yeah. And that might be like the base thing. Like if you can't feel safe with your coach, that's probably not a good coach, right? But you have other things you need to attend to.
Yeah.
Like this whole other thing. Like I think the excitement, the richness of life comes from when we're able to be brave, not just safe, because you can get wrapped up in bubble wrap in your house, you're probably safe, but this is not, there's so much more to life to do it. Oh man.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Got you as a coach. This is a huge thing. So
it's good. I can even almost see trust and safety being interchangeable, because when I think about it now, because you mentioned about me traveling, being out there alone, I've got like no guide how to get somewhere. And when you talk about safety, I didn't have safety, like literally. When you look at me like being in the middle of the road, I'm like, she's not safe. safe, right? But I think because I had safety with me being me, and trust with me being me, and having that internal trust that you're going to figure it out, that allowed me the freedom and permission to be brave, to have courage. And I think that even comes back to a conversation with someone, is when I get to hold some safety and trust with them, that allows them to let go of the need for security and be like, okay, like, let me just go over here and give myself permission to be brave.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. That's where all the good stuff is, I think, is if we're able to be brave. And it's not a permanent state either. We can be brave for a moment and like retreat back after.
Yeah.
But we expand that bravery zone, like the honeycomb. That's so cool. That's awesome. All right, let me hear, what is your outdoors practice? I know that fly, dang. Eat it. I guarantee that fly is going in my mouth. But all right, I want to hear about what do you do? How do you outside? What lights you up out there?
Oh, okay. It's gonna be the air. I don't know what it is. The first thing I wake up, I'm like, I need air. I don't know what it is. I just need fresh air. I need to go outside. And putting myself in an environment that is unfamiliar to, I guess, the safe environment gets you to feel a different thing and look at something different as well. I think when I thought about this earlier, so how I do get outside is it's hikes, it's mountains, it's going for a swim, it's making sure I spend a good amount of time like in nature every day. And it's easy for me because, like, you know, the mountains are at my doorstep. And I remember being in Montreal, I lived there for a year, and I felt like it was hard for me to enjoy being outside, even though I was outside. So I think it very much, there's a lot of attention to what outside serves you. So for me, mountains, trees, water is the kind of outside that serves me. And so I've got to be around that a lot. So I've got to be around trees, I've got to be around water where I'm swimming 3 times a week. I'm going to be around nature. So if it's just sitting on the grass in the park, that's my outside. To other people, outside might be just being outside their home, walking in the city, you know, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be nature all the time, but their outside serves them. So yeah, that's it for me. It's simply just being in those environments that serve me.
Yeah. I'm particularly drawn to the swimming because it's pretty hard. Like, you can't be on a screen. Like, if you're taking a walk, you know, a lot of people, I'm like, oh, wait, I forgot to mention a little footnote here, but don't have your phone on. All right.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. I mean, I guess they're waterproof, but you probably don't want to, you know. Do you find, like, what happens in your brain when you're outside, you're unplugged? I've seen some gorgeous shots of you on mountains and oh my gosh, like, you're surrounded by beauty, but what happens in your brain when you're out there?
Oh, I love that. So when I'm on a mountain, I'm looking at the possibility of this world, right? I'm very much looking out into the horizon, looking at something different. I'm like, to make me think different. But when I'm swimming, it's internal. It's very interesting. Although I'm outside the house, but I drew this distinction the other day too, when I thought about the value of swimming. And swimming is 3 things for me. It's healing, and it's relaxing for my body. It's therapy for my body, but it is also the time I meditate and visualize. It's the only time that I visualize in a way that's life-changing. So when I'm swimming, I'm just doing my laps. I'm actually not even paying attention to, like, how much breath I have or that I'm tired or how many laps. I don't count my laps. I don't do any of that. I just swim. I just move forward. And the consistent movement of my body allows me to go somewhere different, go internal in my mind and meditate. So it is 3, 2, 1 thing. And then you start to see, or anyway, for me, is I start to visualize. So I actually am just visualizing when I'm swimming. And that's why for me, swimming, I'll go 2 times a week at least. And that's the place I go to visualize. And like you said, you don't have earphones in when you swim. You don't have your laptop when you're swimming. You just consistently, like, moving your arms, consistently doing freestyle, consistently breaststroking. And you can get into a really good meditative state doing that. Whereas when I'm outside on a hike, I'm like, oh, look at this mountain, look at this peak. What's the next step I take? Look at this scree, look at the river. You know, you're looking and, you know, finding beauty, I guess, outside. But swimming, it's like, let's go in and see what could be possible in my mind. Yeah, different views.
Interesting. All right, then. So I know for a lot of people, if you're outside, if you're, whatever it is that you're doing in nature or, just outside stuff, you get these great ideas, oh, quick, grab the phone. I got to put this down, or grab a notebook. What do you do when you're swimming? You get a great idea. Do you stop, like write it down?
I think you have to soak yourself in the idea. I think you have to marinate with it. I think when I swim, only 2 or 3 things will come up. It's not like I have like 10 ideas that come up, but I think when you get to the point of visualizing where it's not about finding 10 ideas, but it's seeing what's already there that you intuitively want or desire. And when you give your brain that space, it just surfaces. So most of the time, sometimes 2 names will come up. And I'm like, those people I need to reach out to. And then a podcast idea might come up. I'm like, that's the title. So it's maybe 1 or 2, 3 things, but swimming usually lasts anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour for me. And I'll get out and shower, and then I know there's ideas of still swimming. There's maybe 2 or 3 points, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to work on next, and that's what I'll jot down. So it's not a massive cloud that I'm like, I'm going to forget it, but you don't forget it because it's always been there.
Yeah.
So if anything, writing in my phone is just a reminder for me later in the day what I need to work on, what I need to go and create now.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And I can see that would be like, if you had 100 ideas, that would probably be a little overwhelming to kind of remember all that while you're, in the swim. But if you're, 2 ideas, that's manageable. The brain can hold that. That's okay.
I think the 100 ideas thing comes when you're sitting in, let's say the coffee chats or the things that we have that we can consume, like we're sitting there in a group call, a workshop, whatever it is, and you introduce to a lot of different ideas. That's when those hundreds of ideas comes, because it's all external. It's coming to us. But in meditation, visualizing, it's like what I already know that I intuitively want that needs to be released. So I think the ideas come from 2 different places, from when we're consuming compared to when we're giving ourselves space.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. See, guys, see? See what I'm talking about, right? Oh, man. What drives you?
Oh, I wrote this one down. So I think up until now, and it still is there, it's 3 things. It's connection. Oh, no, hold on. This is the other part, the other answer. Let me get back. Driving. What drives me? I think it's something it was something that I already had mentioned to you. It was 1, that we have 1 life, and 2, that we can live many lives in 1 lifetime. And I think having that in my approach to life, when I wake up, when I go to sleep, helps me dream, helps me feel driven, helps me feel motivated, helps excite me, helps me wonder about the next day.
Solid. I can see that. And you are totally living like many lives. You're, this is cool.
Well, it's for you, right? Because when did you think you were going to do the retreat center?
Yeah, one day I was not even thinking about it, and the next day I had this full-fledged plan. So,
and this might not be the thing you do after 20 years. Like, it could just be there for 5. You might find something else that's like, oh, another lifetime's calling.
Girl, I'll be 75 years old at that point, but
but hey, that's a quarter of a life, like, still to go and create, right?
It's true. You're looking at how long people live now, that's hard to even imagine.
The lives, those chapters can be as short or as long as we want them to be.
It's true.
Last me 2 weeks, last me 2 months.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. That's so cool. All right. I was going to ask you, like, what would your dream nature-based retreat be like?
I think it would just be with my favorite people in somewhere unordinary. I watch other coaches do their thing and where they bring their cohort to, and it's always somewhere really different. Like, my coach takes his group, I think it's 10 people. Every year it's different, or twice a year it's Dubai, then it's Egypt, and then it's somewhere in Asia, and then it's somewhere in his hometown. But it's always an introduction of a place in the world that we would never imagine existed.
Wow.
So if I think of a dream retreat, I don't think of it as one place. I think of it as many places. But if I thought about the campfire, if I think about it being a dream woods retreat with a fire, what would that feel like? I wrote down 4 things. I wrote down playing cards, making pancakes and bacon in the morning with everyone, stargazing, and telling truths.
Oh, I like that. And the pancakes, yeah.
It's a nostalgic thing for me growing up camping a lot. It was
really? Okay.
The smell of bacon, like frying like pancakes too, is just a smell that you can't
beat that. You can't beat that.
Yeah, but I suppose the dream isn't even the food or the setup. Like the dream is like feeling like you're in a dream, and you feel that when you're around people of possibility.
Yeah, that's great. And I think too, like I can already see it with you, I could see you holding a retreat somewhere or whatever. And it's just that fact of being with the people, like something as simple as you're making pancakes and bacon, like that becomes a delight, and it's a shared experience. And it's, I mean, the whole thing, you're just fun to hang out with. I could see people wanting that. So.
Oh, well, I'll tell you one place that I would dream of taking, 5, 6 of my favorite people to would probably be a hot air balloon ride at Cappadocia. Have you ever heard of that place?
Yes, I have, but I didn't know. Hot air balloon. You have me anywhere on the planet, we would do that.
There's a destination in Turkey, for anyone listening to this, called Cappadocia, and it's where thousands of balloons are lit into the sky at once at the same time at sunrise every single day. And the landscape just looks like inhabitable, and it's beautiful. I don't know how I came by it, but it must have been in my research before I was backpacking. I'm like, I gotta go there. And I think 5 months into my solo trip, I stood, because you can only go there by tour. A led group. And because I was on my own, I didn't want to pay like €300 for a hot air balloon ride. I wasn't worth it yet. But the 8 people that I traveled with went, and they all had to get up at 4 a.m. to get to the balloon and watch it be lit and everything. And part of me was like, I'm going to miss out on that. But I still got up at the same time. And when they went over there to go to the taxi and get driven, I walked to the highest point I could find in this town. And I think I got the cool view, because when I stood there in the mountain, it was not only dark, but I could see like all the little dotted balloons that were like deflated on the landscape, hundreds of them. And it was 4:30 a.m. and little sparks were going like along the landscape because they were trying to light every balloon. Then you start to watch each one start to inflate at different times within that 1 hour space, even half an hour actually. All of them start to inflate at different rates, different shapes, all different colors. And I watched each one of them rise by itself. And then the sun came up, and then there was suddenly 100 balloons in the sky, and the sky was turning blue. And I got to see the entire landscape, and I stood there with my camera, took a picture and everything, thinking amazing, amazing. And then there was one moment, like a really split moment, where I thought, shit, I'm standing in my dream. And that was very signifying for me, and I haven't felt anything like that since.
That sounds like a purely magical moment. Like, wow. I mean, did it feel like they were like just right there? Like, like if you're out in the stars, if you're in a very clear sky thing, it feels like the stars are just right, like you could touch them, like it's like a shower of stars, just a bouquet of them. Did it feel like that with the balloons?
Not really. It just felt like I got to see what I thought I wanted. Like, I mean, not what I thought I wanted, but I got to see, I guess, a living visual, almost. And some were close, some were further away and everything, but it just went to the feeling of like, I can do what I dream of. I can do what I thought about. But I didn't have any intention of like, I'm here to achieve my dream. It was just... You visualize something, and then it's at the back of your mind, and then you just sort of create a path, and one day you're like, I got there anyway, and it didn't take me 10 years.
This is that. Oh, wow. Wow.
But yeah, I went there during summer of 2015, and I remember leaving thinking I want to come back here and in winter to see what's like covered in snow, because it's extremely different.
Wow.
But I think to come back after a decade with my 5 most favorite clients, to take them on that balloon ride and relate that to how they feel in their life, because just taking the body out of what you know.
Yeah.
This is again the whole like out of discomfort thing. It's like, just take your body somewhere different.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be so uncomfortable, just go somewhere different.
Yeah.
I'd love to take people on different journeys, different experiences, just to hone in on that little thing that makes life transformative, is just seeing it a different way.
That's beautiful. Man, well, sign me up. That sounds fantastic. Love it. All right, Jules, where can people find out more about you?
Oh gosh, well, so you and I know that we've been working on like my website and got to get the front page up, but julessu.com, as you mentioned, it's still not a website just yet, but on there is the newsletter, and that's where I publish, I guess, most of my value right now, and that's where I'm sort of focusing on giving my value, is the newsletter. And at the right time, like, everything will be available on that website. I've got the podcast there, I've got the blogs, the About Me section, and all about my coaching as well. But I think the whole thing is giving people as much of an experience as me as possible without any cost of time or anything, right? Or money, is making that available first. So I think that's where people can find me. I'm also on Instagram under the Jules Su, but I'd say the website and the newsletter is going to make the most of your time. Anyway. Yeah.
Most effective way to meet her.
Yes, effective way, right. I think otherwise, besides the newsletter, then, like, I think the podcast. Right?
Yeah.
That's everything that I've been producing for the past 3 months. Amazing on autopilot. That's on Apple Podcasts.
Fantastic. A favorite episode people should start with?
It has to be the one that I sent you.
Yeah.
I looked at the stats. I'm like, that's actually the most listened one. The second most listened one was Step Into Leadership.
Okay.
I believe it's 7 minutes, folks.
Yeah. I mean, they're great. They're short and they're just fantastic. And yeah.
Yeah. Right size.
Thanks so much, Jules. I'm psyched. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd love to interview you again later on.
100%. It'll be another life to be interviewed on.
There you go.
So much, Susan. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.